The 2.8 billion mistake. A true story of power, respect, and one very costly assumption. Black CEO stopped by bank manager for using black card. He immediately canceled the 2.8 billion deal. It started with a smirk. The kind of smirk that says, "You don't belong here." A black woman, poised, polished, and powerful, stepped into one of the most luxurious hotels in the world. Everything about her exuded confidence, the sharp elegance of her tailored navy suit, the graceful click of her Louboutin heels against the marble floor, the subtle gleam of a platinum wristwatch that whispered old money. She walked up to the front desk, pulled out her American Express black card with practiced ease, and prepared to check in. The front desk clerk, a young man with a stiff smile and a starched uniform, looked up from his computer. His gaze flickered. To her, scanning her from head to toe with the kind of practiced judgment that hospitality staff were rarely trained to show but often did. His smile curled into something colder, disbelief laced with disdain. He didn't greet her. Instead, he leaned forward slightly, his eyes narrowing. "Ma'am, this card isn't real," he said, barely containing a laugh. "Do you know how exclusive these are?" The moment hung in the air like static before a storm. Conversations in the pristine lobby continued as normal. Suitcases rolled across the polished floor. Champagne glasses clinked in the bar. But for her, time slowed. She was used to the assumptions, the stereotypes, the questions that always came masked in politeness. But this was blatant. She held his gaze. Calm, unshaken. "I'm aware," she replied coolly. "Why don't you try running it again?" He scoffed, clearly convinced he was dealing with some sort of scam. "I don't think that's necessary. We can't process fake cards, and we certainly can't accommodate fraudulent activity here." Behind her, another guest, a middle-aged, white man in a hoodie, walked up to a different clerk, offered a regular credit card without a second glance, and was promptly handed a key card with a courteous smile. She noted the contrast. She always noticed. It wasn't new. What the clerk didn't know? The woman standing in front of him wasn't just another guest. She was the guest. She was the CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech firms in the world. Her company had just finalized a $2.8 billion international partnership deal. A deal that would bring digital infrastructure, jobs, and visibility to over a dozen countries. A deal that this very hotel chain was banking on for their global expansion. And this particular hotel? It was one of the first sites slotted for a luxury tech upgrade, media staging area, and executive event series, all pending her final sign-off. She leaned forward slightly, her voice quiet but resolute. "Get your manager." The clerk blinked. "Excuse me?" She didn't repeat herself. Within moments, the manager appeared, a seasoned woman in her 50s, hair pulled back in a sleek bun, smile tight but polished. "Is there an issue, ma'am?" The CEO handed her the card wordlessly. The manager's eyes widened slightly as she took it, recognizing its weight, its sheen, its validity. She swiped it without a word. Approved instantly. "I sincerely apologize, Ms. Thompson," the manager said quickly, glancing at the screen. "You're booked into our presidential suite for 5 nights. Allow me to personally escort you. We'll have champagne and hors d'oeuvres sent up immediately." The clerk's face turned pale. He opened his mouth, but the CEO raised a hand. Gently, "Save it," she said. "Let this be your lesson. Never judge power by the package it comes in." She turned to follow the manager, her heels once again echoing through the lobby, this time louder, more pointed. As she walked toward the private elevator, whispers began to ripple through the staff. Some recognized her name now. Others Googled it quickly, their eyes widening. By the time she reached the suite, her assistant had already messaged her. "Heard about the front desk. PR team is on standby. Want to make a statement?" She paused, looked out over the city skyline from the penthouse window, and smiled. "Not yet. Let them sweat a little. Because sometimes power doesn't need to roar. Sometimes it just needs to walk in, calmly, gracefully. and make it clear that it always belonged there, whether they recognized it or not. And the next time she entered that lobby, there would be no smirks, only respect. Let's rewind for a second. The woman's name? We'll call her Danielle. Danielle didn't come from privilege. There were no silver spoons, no legacy connections, no trust funds cushioning her rise. What she did have was grit, the kind forged in late nights balancing textbooks and part-time jobs, in internships that barely paid but taught her everything, in boardrooms where she was the only woman, the only black person, the only one who had to prove she belonged every single time. But Danielle didn't just prove herself, she dominated. Years of resilience had shaped her into a visionary leader. Today, she sat at the helm of one of the most influential tech firms in the world, known for disrupting entire industries with innovation, elegance, and a no-nonsense approach to business. When Danielle moved, markets noticed. When she spoke, rooms fell silent. And when she walked into that hotel lobby, she did so not just as a guest, but as a decision-maker, one whose judgment could redirect millions in revenue. Her company was on the verge of finalizing a massive merger with an international travel conglomerate, the kind of merger that would make headlines, shift economies, and require a robust hospitality partner to accommodate high-level executives, global summits, and tech showcases across 48 countries. Part of the deal? Choosing the right luxury hotel chain for the job. Danielle wasn't the type to delegate something that important. She knew that a brand's values were best revealed when they didn't know they were being watched. So she flew out under the radar, dressed simply but sharply, and booked a stay at one of the chains under final consideration. The hotel didn't know who she was. They didn't know this visit was the visit, and they certainly didn't know that. One small moment, one arrogant smirk, one assumption, would cost them everything, because when Danielle walked into that lobby, they didn't see a CEO. They saw a black woman and made a snap judgment. They dismissed her before she spoke, laughed at her before learning her name, questioned the authenticity of her card instead of the integrity of their own behavior. By the time the manager came rushing out with apologies and excuses, the decision had already been made. Danielle didn't raise her voice. She didn't demand a scene. She simply took mental notes on how she was treated, on what it said about the brand, on how easily her presence disrupted their idea of who deserved to belong. Later that evening, as she reviewed notes from other site visits and updated her executive team, she made the final call. Remove them from consideration. Permanently. It wasn't personal. It was business. And in business, perception is power. Danielle had walked in to assess a brand. What she discovered was a culture unprepared for the future. A culture that couldn't see power in a package that didn't fit their expectations. And that was their biggest mistake. Back at the hotel lobby, Danielle stayed calm. She had been here before, not in this exact lobby, not with this exact face sneering at her, but in enough rooms, enough encounters to know exactly what was unfolding. The pattern was always the same: disbelief disguised as protocol, disrespect delivered with a smile. Still, she gave grace. She politely gestured toward the card reader again. "Please run the card one more time." The clerk rolled his eyes, clearly amused by what he saw as a performance. Instead of helping, he leaned over and whispered something to a nearby colleague. They both chuckled. The second staff member, a woman in her 20s with a clipboard and a condescending grin, joined the desk. Her eyes flicked over Danielle, hair, shoes, skin, before landing back on the card. "Ma'am," she said slowly, as if speaking to a child, "we need real payment to continue." There it was. Danielle could have raised her voice. She could have demanded a manager, dropped her title, mentioned the merger, named the executives she had on speed dial. She could have threatened press, lawsuits, backlash, and all of it would have been justified. But she didn't. She gave them one more chance. One more opportunity to realize who they were dealing with. One more moment to remember their training, their brand values, their humanity. They didn't take it. Instead, the clerk picked up the phone and called security. Yes, security. They actually called security on the CEO of a billion-dollar tech company. In a five-star hotel she was evaluating for a multi-million-dollar partnership. In a building that could have had her company's name on every banner, her team's presence in every conference room, her stamp of approval on every deal signed. Under that roof, she didn't flinch. When the two security guards arrived, both slightly confused but trained to follow instructions, they approached her with wary eyes. "Ma'am, we were told there was an issue with payment," one asked. Danielle didn't argue. She didn't plead or explain or hand over another card. She simply stepped aside, pulled out her phone, and made one short call. "Simone," she said calmly, addressing her chief of global operations, "remove the Meridian Group from the hospitality short list, effective immediately, and draft a memo summarizing why." She paused, glancing at the staff behind the desk. "No discretion. I want it clear. Bias, disrespect, and failure to recognize high-level partners." She ended the call with a soft, "Thank you," and tucked her phone back into her bag, the front. By the time Danielle reached the curb outside, a black SUV was already waiting. The doorman, oblivious to the drama that had unfolded inside, opened the door with a polished smile. Danielle thanked him softly and slid into the back seat. The interior was quiet, cool, and calm, a stark contrast to the tension she'd just left behind. Her assistant, Maya, was already inside, tablet in hand, earbuds in place. She looked up, studying Danielle's expression. She didn't need details. She could tell. "Do we move forward with them?" she asked quietly. Danielle shook her head. "We're done here." Maya nodded without a word. She tapped a note on the tablet, flagging the hotel's file as disqualified. No ceremony, no second chances. That night, back in her suite at a competing hotel, Danielle reviewed the rest of the partnership files. She'd visited 7 properties across 4 countries. Most had rolled out the red carpet. Not because they knew who she was, but because they treated everyone with respect. That mattered more than marble lobbies and rooftop pools. Culture wasn't what a brand wrote in their mission statement. It was what their people did when no one was watching. She opened a secure channel and submitted her report to the board of directors. Subject: Final recommendation, hospitality partner. Shortlist attached memo. Remove the Meridian Group from consideration, effective immediately. During an unannounced evaluation, 2 of their staff members exhibited clear signs of bias, unprofessional conduct, and a complete lack of cultural awareness. Despite being presented with valid credentials, I was met with mockery, dismissed without reason, and ultimately escorted from the premises by security. We cannot afford to align our name, or this merger, with a brand that fails at the most basic level of inclusivity. This partnership represents more than business. It's a statement of our values, our identity, and our global vision. If their staff treats an unknown guest this way, imagine how they'll treat our partners, clients, or employees from underrepresented backgrounds. This is a non-negotiable red flag. Danielle hit send. Just like that, a $2.8 billion opportunity vanished. Gone in the blink of an eye, all because 2 hotel employees made a snap judgment. Because they couldn't imagine that the black woman standing before them in quiet confidence could be the decision maker. The next morning, across the city, in the Meridian Group's regional corporate office, things proceeded as usual until an urgent email came through from Danielle's company. A short, direct rejection letter. The subject line was brutal. Hospitality partnership declined. Final notice: the body was worse. Your brand has been removed from consideration for the Executive Hospitality Partnership pending our international merger. This decision is final and was based on direct leadership-level evaluation. We recommend a comprehensive audit of your staff training and frontline protocols. Panic spread like wildfire. Executives scrambled to figure out what had happened, combing through schedules, cross-referencing VIP guests, trying to identify when and where the visit had taken place. But Danielle had flown in under the radar. No press, no entourage, no heads up. Just quiet authority, observing, noting, deciding. By the time the hotel's senior vice president placed a frantic call to Danielle's office to request a meeting, the answer had already been logged. No response, no appeal. Decision closed. The fallout came quickly. A major hospitality blog leaked a story about a high-stakes mystery evaluation tied to the merger. Speculation spread. Competing chains quietly celebrated. Internally, Meridian launched an investigation, fired 2 employees, and issued a statement about renewed commitments to diversity and inclusion. But it didn't matter. The damage had already been done. Reputation, opportunity, and credibility lost in a single moment. Danielle, meanwhile, had already moved on. There were other deals to close, other countries to visit, other leaders to uplift. She wasn't interested in dragging anyone through the mud. Her silence was louder than any press release. Her absence more powerful than any public critique. Because in the end, she didn't need revenge. She had something stronger. Choice. And when you hold the power to choose who sits at your table, you don't argue with people who tried to keep you out of the room. You build better rooms. Rooms where no one has to prove they belong, because they already do.